And I'm going to start by just kind of talking about some of the national issues that are going on that may be of interest to you, and then talk about some new laws that have just passed in the past legislative session, as well as potential laws that we might see next year. So I'm going to start off with TAA, the Trade Adjustment Assistance Act. TAA is available for producers such as farmers, fishermen, and ranchers that are in competition with imported products. And if you want to look it up, you can find it in the United States Code, Section 19, Part 6. Some of you may be familiar with it because a number of shrimpers have been involved in the program. The classification of producers can be persons who share in the risk of producing an agricultural commodity who are entitled to a share of the commodity for marketing. And a commodity includes any wild-caught aquatic species. So that is where the crab fishery would fall under. So the goal of TAA is to do three things. First, it's to adjust to changing environments associated with imported competition, regain economic competitiveness, and or shift into producing other goods. And so this happens when you have imports that are coming in that are driving prices down, making it really hard to maintain price within the U.S. for a U.S. product to try to boost those commodities. So how would an individual qualify for TAA assistance? Well, it's a two-step process. And first, the commodity itself has to be certified as eligible through the USDA Foreign Agricultural Service. And so for this to happen, a group of producers, and that's 3 or more, or a commodity organization may request that a commodity be certified by submitting a form, which I'm going to talk about in a second, to the USDA FAS. And then the second part is once it's certified as eligible, the individual has to register for the assistance. So on this form, the main point of it is that you have to prove that there has been at least a 15% decline in one of 4 things: national average price, quantity of production, value of production, or cash receipts in the most recent marketing year as compared to the previous 3 years. So you have to show that 15% decline in one of those 4 categories. But you also have to show that imports contributed importantly to this decline. And so you can't just show, oh, there's been a decline, but it didn't have anything to do with the imports. It was entirely due to, say, oil spill. That won't qualify for this. You have to link it to the imports that are coming in. So then once it's certified as eligible, you as a fisherman have to sign up for the program. The benefit is that it provides assistance and funds to formulate and implement a business adjustment plan, including training on how to increase profitability, improve production efficiency, consider marketing opportunities, and evaluate alternative enterprises. And so there's special trainings once a commodity is certified, and funds to help implement the things you learn in those trainings. So what is the current status of TAA? There was the Trade Adjustment Assistance Act of 2011 that reauthorized the workers, firms, and farmers programs through December 31st of this year. There was one program, a community program, that didn't get reauthorized, and so that's why it breaks out into those 3 sections. So really, the program technically ends at the end, December 31st of this year. But we have a Senate bill that was introduced this summer, Senate Bill 1357, and that's the Trade Adjustment Assistance Extension Act of 2013. It was introduced July 24th, and if it passes, it would extend the TAA programs through 2020 at current funding levels. And this is $90 million for the farm program. Right now it's in committee. It went to committee the day it was introduced, and nothing has happened with it. It's really not clear at this point if it will move forward, but if it does, this might be something that you want to be aware of in the coming years that crab fishermen might want to get together and apply for.
Whose bill is it?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I can look it up.
Are the Louisiana elected officials behind it?
I don't know. I'm really not sure, but I can pull it up when I get done. Nope. So now I'm going to jump to local issues and talk about some bills that were passed in the 2013 regular legislative session. So the first is Act number 16, and this is the one that talks about escape rings. And so this act provides that escape ring requirements found in 332K do not apply to any crab trap constructed of wire mesh 2 5/16 inches square or greater, or any crab trap placed in Lake Pontchartrain. So this is the new requirements for escape rings. Okay. Now, the next part that I'm going to talk about doesn't directly apply to the crab industry, but it may next year. So, does anyone also do oysters or clams or mussels or anything? No? So this passed, in Act number 35, this past legislative session, the oyster industry was able to get the penalties for oyster harvesting violations increased. And so if you're harvesting, if you violate the rules pertaining to refrigeration, that is set now as a Class 4 violation without the forfeiture of any seized items. Normally a Class 4 involves seizing the items that are related to the violation, but for this one, for refrigeration, it doesn't include forfeiture. And so the next section is for any other first violations related to harvesting. They've added a community service requirement of 40 hours, and if litter abatement is available, it has to be in litter abatement. For second violations, the penalty hasn't changed. Your oyster harvester license is revoked, and no new licenses will be issued for 3 years. But they added this: for third and subsequent violations, the harvester license is revoked, and no new licenses will be issued for 10 years. And that's a very big increase over what it was before. And then also, they added that violations for taking oysters from natural reefs during a closure is classified as a Class 6 violation, and community service is added. And so the oyster industry was able to get these increases in violations. The reason I'm talking about this is because there is potential for new legislation next year related to the theft of crab traps. Currently, theft of a crab trap is a Class 4 violation, and you can see how the penalty breaks out between first, second, and third or more offense. So you start with a fine between $400 and $950, or imprisonment, and then a fine $700 to $999 and imprisonment. And then third more offense, a fine between $1,000 and $5,000, and imprisonment between 180 days and 2 years, plus forfeiture of all items seized. There is a movement, some discussion with the Crab Task Force to increase these violations as seen in the increases in the oyster violations, to try to really more greatly discourage theft of crab traps. And so, for example, and this is just an example, if the law would change to make it a Class 6 violation, the penalty for each offense would be a fine between $900 and $950, or imprisonment up to 120 days, or both, plus forfeiture. And so you may want to keep an eye on this. There are attorneys at Department of Wildlife and Fisheries in conjunction with the Crab Task Force that are working on this potential new legislation. There's also potential new legislation for female harvesting. And so y'all talked a little bit earlier about the size of crabs, 5 inches from point to point, with some exceptions for pre-molt crabs. And you can't keep female crabs in the berry stage, with some very limited exceptions. So there is a concern that has been voiced at Crab Task Force meetings about immature females that are both below the 5-inch size or even above the 5-inch size in some situations, that are being kept for select markets, primarily overseas. And the Crab Task Force is concerned that this is going to impact the population of the crab over time, as more and more of these really young females are kept. And so there is a movement to reduce or prohibit the taking of immature female crabs with greater penalties in some situations in order to protect the increases to the fishery into the future. And so again, the Crab Task Force and attorneys at Wildlife and Fisheries are working on this potential legislation that we may see. So does anyone have any questions about these issues? Julie?
I just want to move the TAA bill. It's obvious from Montana and Collins for Maine that are doing that bill, and not Louisiana.
Well, Senator Landrieu in the 2013 authorization, she signed on as one of the co-authors. So Mary Landrieu is one of the co-authors on the
Yeah.
Increasing the range, escape rings in the track would certainly help the release of the small.
Definitely.
And in Texas, they actually have that. They have 4 rings, 2 in the stock chambers, 2 in the box for that to take place. For us, it's just a pain to sort them anyway. So.
Right. And because of the issue of sorting, there is they do allow some minor variation that might occur during sorting if you miss a crab or that sort of thing.
6 in mine because I don't want to have to mess with them.
Yeah.
It just helps out.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Crab Task Force members, are they now appointed by the governor?
So crab task force members, there's a section that are about half of them get to vote on things. I am a non-voting member. I just provide information. Julie's on it as well as a non-voting, and I think maybe a couple other people in the room. And I think we are all appointed by the governor, right? Yeah.
Appointed by the governor.
Yeah, but they're open to the public, and there is a text message and a phone call service you can sign up for to find out about the meetings in advance.
Do you know when this took place, where they were appointed by the governor?
It depends. I think it rotates every 2 years. Julie, are we appointed?
When did it start?
Oh, when did it start? Anybody know when the Crab Task Force started?
Julie, you know when the crowd task force started? No.
No, it's about 15 years. So it's been about 15 years.
It didn't start before the year 2000, for sure.
I can't say for sure. I don't know when it started.
Because I was on the task force and resigned in 2000.
Okay.
And we selected our own members to serve.
And now we have to go through an application process, and we are appointed.
Yeah, I just wanted to say real quick that the task force meetings are open to the public, and obviously, like, industry input is important for the meetings. So if you guys are interested, the meetings are announced through our news releases, but we also have a text alert program that if you want to know when the meetings are, we can let you know through a text alert. So if you want to do that, you can see me afterwards and sign up for it.
And I know at least at the last meeting, we had a number of empty spots still available for fishermen and maybe some shedders and producers. I'm not exactly sure where the vacancies were. So if you are interested in joining, we're always looking for more interested people in the fishery.
And where are those meetings at?
Sometimes they're in Baton Rouge, sometimes they're in New Orleans. We try to mix it up a little bit to make it easier for people from different parts of the state.